to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to read a couple letters of condolence. First, to the family of Donald Bergstrom. Upon his passing on December 22nd, 2018, Mr. Bergstrom served in the United States Army during the Vietnam War. Also for Mr. Stearns, who served in the United States Marine Corps during the Korean War. He was served as an active administrative supporter of the Bridgewater Little League Baseball and the Bridgewater Lions Club. That would be Robert J. Stearns upon his passing on December 20th, 2018. I'd like to have a moment of silence for those gentlemen. Thank you. We don't have any announcements from the president. Yet. We have minutes. We're going to have to postpone the minutes because they are not available. I don't think we need to move or talk about that at all. We just postpone it. We can
move to postpone the approval of the minutes.
Motion to postpone made and seconded. Any discussion on the postponement of the minutes? Seeing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Excellent. Where is the president's announcement? Sorry. Oh yeah, papers are available for those who want to run for council. There's one at-large position and 7 precincts 4 and 7 are available. Library trustee and school committees. That's out of order. Probably should have taken the motion for that. Okay. Now the hour is 7:35. I'd like to open the hearing.
You're out of order, sir.
I'm sorry. What did I miss? Citizens Open Forum. There you go. No proclamation, Citizens Open Forum. Thank you. Any citizens like to come up and say a word during open forum? Excellent. Seeing none. Appointments? None. Hearings? Thank you, Ms. Loesch. 7:36 for this hearing to be open. And I am looking for a motion to continue. That's the word. Thank you very much. And so, motion to continue this so we can shelf it for a little later tonight.
So moved.
Motion made.
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion on that? None. Those in favor of that motion? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. So now I'm going to fish for taking something out of order, which would be J.
I move to take item J out of order.
A second.
Excellent. Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor of moving item J?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Nay. Okay. So now we can begin with a joint meeting with the town manager, finance committee, and school committee. I would like to add that via phone, modern technology, Jerry Muller is on the phone. Hello, Jerry. Can you hear us? Can we hear Jerry yet? It's perfect.
Is that better? Hello?
Hey, Jerry. It is. Okay. So,
We're not going to be voting on anything.
is him not being connected gonna prevent anything other than him not hearing. So we're good to go regardless. Okay.
There's no votes. There's no vote.
No voting. So, Mr. Dutton?
All right, I just thought maybe I'd obviously welcome the school committee folks and the superintendent.
Can we open our meeting? Just to be sure,
Absolutely.
Actually, just like the open meeting of the Bridgewater Rainham Regional School Committee on January 8th, 38.
Thank you. And if, I know it might be a little laborious, but I know that there are probably counselors that don't know school committee folks and vice versa, so I thought maybe just quickly go around the table, if that's okay with the two chairs. And I'll start with myself. I'm Michael Dutton. I'm the town manager in Bridgewater.
I'm Jason Rollins. I'm the town attorney in Bridgewater.
Tony Salmont, finance director in Bridgewater.
Tony Gelfi, school.
School committee.
Julie Sclapara, School Committee.
Mike Dolan, School Committee.
Susan Prandowski, School Committee. Chair.
Derek Swenson, Superintendent of Schools.
Rachel King, school.
Kevin Moyer, School Committee.
Kimberly Williams, assistant town manager.
Matthew Rushton, Finance Committee.
Peter Columbotus, District 5 Representative, Town Council.
Bill Wood, District 6 representative on the town council.
Dennis Gallagher, counselor at large.
Ted Haley, Center Chair, President.
Fred Chase, I represent District 4.
John George, Precinct 3.
Aisha Loesch, District 1.
Thank you. And I thought I would just sort of open it up. I know in years past, we've had sort of like a presentation kind of, top.
I'm sorry, maybe we could pass these vacant microphones down to you all, so
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
they're not all that sensitive. You need to, can you pass that one down? Distribute them.
Now you have to speak.
Come on down.
But in years past, we've sort of done a top-down presentation style thing, and I think that I've heard from some of the counselors that they would, benefit from a little more, interaction and back and forth, just what the school's constraints are and versus the town's constraints and sort of flesh that out a little bit. Obviously, it's pretty early in the budget process. In some senses, we don't know what our final state aid numbers are. We don't even know what the proposed state aid numbers are just yet. So we have, and then there's talk about, the state not getting a budget finalized until well after July. So we'll see what happens there. But I thought it would be a good opportunity to, get I know probably a little bit more about the challenges that the district has than most of the counselors. So I think it'd be helpful to sort of, have a little bit of a discussion. I will, only in a very small sense of the word, give you just sort of a little bit of the lay of the land and let you know what the council's been doing. The council has now adopted 2020 budget guidelines, which it does every year. We've sort of morphed away from the very rigid numbers-based policies and guidelines that we've had in the past, and I'm sure Councillor Wood will speak more to that. And in its place, we've sort of well, I'll go through it and just let you know what we've done. Basically, it all revolves around making sure that this little piece of our continuum, this one yearly annual piece of our continuum, is going to keep us in sound financial condition. So, sound financial condition defined as cash solvency, the ability to pay our bills on time, budget solvency, the ability to balance the budget every year, long-term solvency, the ability to pay for future costs, service level solvency, which is the ability to provide, the services that the residents desire and need, and then reserve solvency, which is the ability to adapt and respond to different economic conditions. So we've gone through a pretty good cycle. We now are planning, and Tony can talk a little bit more about how we're planning for the apocalypse. No, we're planning for the next downturn, which is what, unfortunately we have to talk about even when times are good. And then we want to maintain and improve our bond rating, because ultimately that lowers, for most of our purposes, that really lowers our borrowing costs. So if we're out looking for money for the Mitchell School or for roads, some bond money for roads, we want to make that borrowing cost as low as possible, so the yearly expense to taxpayers is as low as possible. So that's sort of just generally what sound financial condition is, and that's what the council has encouraged us to do. We do a multi-year forecast. Our current one is for FY19 through 23, and I will submit that with the 2020 budget. But that really gives us an idea of where our cost drivers are outpacing our revenue capacity, and we can get our arms and hands around that issue. It also allows us to identify very early any structural deficits that we see coming along the pike. So again, that the long-term financial picture is helpful. As an example, we have, and it's just one example, we have new stormwater regulations that everybody has to adhere to, and they're a cost driver. It's a relatively new cost driver for us, so we're going to have to get our arms around that and figure out how we're going to satisfy the cost demands placed because of those, because that's, as most things are for both of us, that's sort of an unfunded mandate. So we look at very carefully at historical data, and we try to put a clear chronology together for the council, and with that, we then can develop a 2020 budget. So the council's approved the following guidelines for the 2020 budget. So we're going to avoid some of the budgetary practices that have occurred in the past, and make sure that our revenues, consistent revenues, are going to keep pace with our expenditures. We don't want to be in a position of postponing maintenance and upkeep to our facilities and equipment. Reoccurring costs, we look at very carefully. We also look at making sure that our reoccurring costs are going to be funded with recurring sources of revenue. So probably everybody in this room is tired of hearing me say, no, we can't use free cash to fund operations. Free cash are one-time hits. They come at the end of the year after we balance all our books. And as people around this room know, that free cash is the difference, but basically the difference, the annual difference between what we bring in and what we spend. So hopefully that's a positive balance. There were some years in Bridgewater where it was not a positive balance and caused us some problems. So that we're very careful to make sure that we balance recurring revenues and recurring expenses ongoing. We also want to make sure, while times are quote unquote good, that we maintain an unreserved fund balance, which is targeted about 1.75% of our operating budget. And we kind of plan for that on a yearly basis. So the free cash, the unreserved fund balance that comes in, we try to make sure that we're in the 1.75% ballpark. We also want to make sure that we maintain a stabilization fund that is going to carry us through the down cycle. When I talked about planning for the next down cycle, that's primarily what we're doing among all the other things, but primarily what we want to look at is making sure that we've got stabilization that's going to survive, or allow us to survive the lean years. So in 2008, 9, 10, we went through some really lean years without having sufficient stabilization to carry us through. So hence, we looked at layoffs, we looked at canceling a lot of the maintenance that we did, so any number of things that weren't good things to do. So to make sure that we can carry us through those lean times, we want to make sure that our stabilization fund is there so that we can tap it, avoid layoffs, avoid drastic reduction in expenses during the down times. So we target about 10% of that, 10% of operating budget. We are just about there. We really are there. Now it's just a matter of maintaining that 10%. So as our budgets go up, we want to maintain that 10% in our stabilization fund. On the revenue side, we want to make sure that we're looking at diversification and stabilization of our revenue streams. I think citizen perception is that all the revenue comes from property taxes. Well, that's not true. We get some level of state aid. It's sort of similar to the schools. The schools have the budget that's covered by the town. Then you've got other Chapter 70 funds. You've got that kind of thing. So we try to make sure that the revenue stream is varied. We want as much varied revenue as we can because that's going to provide some level of stability long term. And we want to make sure that we maximize the revenues where we can. We can't go up without a town vote, without a ballot vote. We can't go beyond 2.5% on our levy. So we want to make sure that our local receipts are healthy. We want to make sure that we're not undercharging for building permits or electrical permits or business licenses and so forth. So, and as an aside, I don't think we're undercharging. At least that's not what all the people tell me. I found it very interesting, actually, when I first started and after Tony started, we just kind of assumed that everyone understood, where our revenues really came from, and it was a kind of no-brainer to us because we do it every day. And I was very surprised that really most of our department heads didn't even really understand, unless they were in the finance areas, didn't really understand where the money actually came from and how it accrued on an annual basis to allow us to do a budget process. So we've done a lot of work, actually. Tony's, I'll give him great credit, and Kim as well. They've really taken an educational approach with a lot of the department heads to say, give them a real basis about where the money comes from. Anyway, in terms of revenue, in 2018, we had about a 3.4% increase in our overall revenues. 19, it was about a good year, 3.86, and then Tony right now is, based on some early projections, looking at about 3.2 to 3.4% increase. Expenditures, I don't think I already mentioned that. We just want to make sure that our cost drivers are in line with our revenues, and we don't want those cost drivers to get out of control and outpace whatever future growth we're looking at. We also want to make sure that we're maintaining our capital assets. Obviously, roads is sort of the hot topic right now. We've got 3 almost total failures in drainage. And we're going to have to approach that in short order. So those will be capital expenses, much like the Mitchell School, had us. We were rolling along just dandy, and then there was a snowstorm, and that was the end of that. So in some ways, it's sort of the same. We were rolling along kind of fat and happy, and all of a sudden we realized that we'd had drainage collapses underneath three of our roads, major roads. So we're going to have to deal with that. And really, that's about it. We make sure that for 2020 and every year, we make sure that we know what the implications of contracted services are. We contract out some services: tree removal, drainage, storm drain cleaning, a whole variety of different things. We want to make sure we've got our hands around exactly what those contracts are and how they're going to impact our bottom line. We look for grant funding, as we do every year. Grant funding generally doesn't offset our operational expenses, but it does help us accomplish some things that we might not otherwise be able to accomplish. And ultimately, when we get through the whole process, I have to come back to the council with a budget that maintains current service levels and can get at least 5 votes on the council. So, and I think I'd only end. one of my priorities for the upcoming year is focused on education. You know, going through the Mitchell School process has been very helpful, actually, for me personally, to sort of understand, you know, what the district's trying to do educationally, and how important it is to get at least the school back up and going. But it's also sort of highlighted to me the holistic approach, that the same sort of holistic approach that the MSBA has made us use, I think is actually very helpful for us to use going forward. And you know, the one partner we don't have here is Rainham, but I think the superintendent's budget committee meeting that we attended, I thought was great, and I'd love to see us, you know, kind of get together more frequently, and on a more holistic basis that isn't focused just on the year-to-year annual budget. So I'll extend an invitation, and happy to do that anytime. And so I said there were no presentations, so I'm just having a conversation here with myself. But that's really all I just wanted to lay out, and I'll, you know, let you guys, and superintendent probably wants to have his conversation as well. And so if president agrees, I'll just defer to superintendent.
Madam Chair?
Sure, that'd be great, thank you.
Thank you, Council President Haley, members of the Bridgewater Town Council, and supporting casts. We appreciate the opportunity to meet with you this evening, every year at this time. As Mr. Dutton stated, it is early in the FY20 budget development stages. However, many folks may not realize that we actually begin our FY20 budget, or the upcoming budget season, begins in October. So we're about a month into school, just putting in place the operational budget that was passed the previous May, and we're already starting to develop and create our budget for the upcoming school year, 2019-20. So basically at this stage, I have met with our Director of Business Services, Kathleen Macedo, all of our principals, our directors, our managers, our department heads, and basically asked them to bring forth staffing requests that they feel as though they need in order to run their schools or their departments at an optimal rate. Also, their basic operational budgets for their individual departments or schools. At this stage now, it becomes a game of prioritizing what our actual needs and what are some of our wishes of our principals and directors. As a former principal, I will say that I would always go to the superintendent in those meetings and ask for everything I felt as though I needed, with the understanding that I knew that I wasn't going to get everything I asked for. But point being is, if I didn't ask, I probably will never receive down the line. So I take that you know, with a grain of salt when my principals come to me with, 19 staffing requests for one building. We realize last year I had asked in my preliminary budget for 19 and a half positions, and after the budget season, we were able to get one of those positions in, which was a school psychologist on the Rainham side. To this point, I have about 47 and a half staffing requests from our principals and directors. So right now, myself and our assistant superintendent, Ryan Powers, along with Kathy Macedo, are working to kind of whittle that down to put together my preliminary budget that I will be presenting to the school committee on the 28th, and that will be at 7 o'clock at Rainham Middle School. I extend the invitation to members of the council who can attend that preliminary budget hearing. At that time, I'm sorry, it's the 23rd. The 28th is a school building committee meeting. I got a lot of meetings in the month of January. Sorry, so it's Wednesday the 23rd. My apologies on that. And again, Rainham Middle School Library. At that point, I will present my preliminary budget to the full committee. At that point, they will take a vote if they are going to accept that budget. And then at that point, it becomes the budget of the school committee. And that's when the real work begins primarily through our budget subcommittee. As Mr. Dutton said, we had a joint town subcommittee meeting back in October. I was going to make a suggestion at our subcommittee meeting next week that we may possibly have another joint meeting, possibly in February. So at that point, it will hopefully be the budget of the school committee, and that will be, we might actually have multiple subcommittee meetings that month during budget season. So we'd like to invite members of the town council and FinCom from both towns to attend those meetings in February, because that's really where the work begins in terms of coming up with a budget, obviously, that delivers the needs and services that our students and staff deserve. But also, we realize and we're cognizant of the fact that we have to be fiscally responsible in terms of what we are requesting from our towns. As Mr. Dutton stated, we have 3 bites to the apple. We have our state funding through Chapter 70, Chapter 71, which is regional transportation funding. We also have our town assessments, and we too internally have our revenues as well. So we really have to take all of those factors into consideration and figure out, again, putting together a budget. It's a needs-based budget that provides the delivery of services that our students and staff deserve. So with, again, being cognizant of the towns and that we're not the only show in town. There are other municipal departments that need the town's funding as well. So we're in good shape right now in terms of the process. There's still a lot of work to be done leading up to my preliminary budget on the 23rd. And then again, future work to be done once it becomes the budget of the full committee. So I'd be happy to answer any questions in regards to where we are right now leading up to my preliminary budget, talk about maybe some of the cost drivers. I know we talked about that in the joint financial subcommittee meeting. As we all know, both towns are growing exponentially with a lot of the construction projects on both sides of our district. Home sales are at an all-time high as well. We're seeing an influx of a lot of students, especially at our K-4 population. Since the summer registration, we've had about another 250 students that have moved into our district-wide. It's not only from Bridgewater, but district-wide. We have a lot of developments that have been under construction that are now, so a lot of the units are currently online. We have a central registration that we have developed a few years back where instead of going to the individual schools to register students, we have one-stop shop. So it's a little bit easier for us to collect that data and have an idea of the amount of move-ins that we have, and it keeps our information clean because that's what really truly creates our SIMS data that we provide to the state that then in turn becomes our Chapter 70 monies from the state. So having that central registration helps us in that respect, but also helps us to kind of really have a day-to-day view of how rapidly the student population is growing. And again, our K-4 is really, our target right now where we're seeing a lot of growth, which makes sense because a lot of folks that are moving into communities to start families or have younger school-age children. Not many parents are going to uproot their students when they're in the middle or the high school ages. So again, that's where we're seeing our greatest growth. And right now at the Mitchell Elementary School, Mr. Bray, who's the principal at the Mitchell Elementary School, has stated to me that he could have added an additional class at each grade level, K-3, this school year to help combat some of the class size issues that we are currently trying to rectify. Another issue that I did bring up at the joint financial subcommittee meeting is the amount of social emotional issues that unfortunately our children are encountering. Not only, in years past, it's been somewhat of a situation at the middle or the secondary level high school, but we're seeing now a lot of our social emotional issues are happening even at the elementary level. And it is definitely putting some pressures on our counselors, which we have a very skeleton crew of counselors at the elementary and middle level. So I will be advocating for school adjustment counselors, social workers, to help combat some of those social emotional issues that we are unfortunately dealing with. That's not a Bridgewater Rainham situation. That's a situation throughout the Commonwealth and unfortunately throughout our nation currently. I did share some information about a survey that was taken through the National Superintendents Organization last year, and they talked about some of the major concerns and trends in education, and close to 80% stated the uptick of social emotional issues of students that are unfortunately then sometimes resulting in hospitalizations to help assist and provide supports to these students. So definitely class size, combating class size, and also trying to provide some supports for our social emotional needs through our district are definitely going to be some of the cost drivers that are going to be within this FY20 budget in terms of staffing. And I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council specifically to those or any other concerns or questions that you may have.
You mentioned some cost drivers. Are there any in particular, any standouts that would come to mind at this point that you know that you'd be looking at within that the coming year?
In regards to staff, I would say the biggest cost driver are going to be our staffing, which is usually the biggest.
Well, yeah, you mentioned those two. I mean, anything unique to outside of those two?
I mean, there are some operational type requests that have come to me from our director of facilities in terms of we do all of our, which is a cost avoidance measure. We do all of our in-house plowing and snow removal. So if we were to vendor that out, we kind of priced it out, and at one point, one lot, say the high school lot, may cost us for one storm $7,000, where we can do all 6 of our sites currently for that amount by having our own machines and trucks and our own staff with custodians and our maintenance and our grounds crew doing the plowing under the direction of the director of facilities. However, now some of the issues that we're having is that some of our equipment is becoming outdated, and we may have to add another truck to the fleet, some plowing equipment, those types of things. But the biggest cost drivers we see currently are going to be our staffing requests. We've done a lot of upgrades in terms of our curriculum and instruction over the course of the last few years. We brought in new math series. We brought in new anthologies at the elementary level, writing programs. So all of those things are currently in place. We don't really have any big ticket items in regards to curriculum and instruction. We have done quite a bit of upgrades to our technology, and we'll continue to do that. We just did a major wireless project at the high school. So we increased our wireless routers from 35 to 152. So we have a much more robust wireless environment at the high school. We also increased our bandwidth and actually created what's called a WAN, a wide area network, all through fiber, and to thank Mr. Dutton for that. With TMLP, we got a grant, but we were able to tie into some of the fiber lines here in Bridgewater. So now all of Bridgewater and Rainham are tied in through fiber to the high school with increased bandwidth and wireless. So I foresee probably the FY21 budget looking to create some type of one-to-one device initiative at the high school, meaning that each student at the high school would receive a Chromebook or some type of device so that we can kind of get away from traditional textbooks and go more app-based type and Google platform for learning type initiatives. So, but in order to get to that point, we really had to improve our infrastructure from a technology standpoint and our environment. And that's where a lot of our big cost driver in previous budgets have been. Right now, I think we're in good shape in terms of that not being a big ticket item in next year's budget in terms of technology, because we've done so much upgrades over the last 2 or 3 budgets with, creating that environment that's going to support that one-to-one initiative, hopefully, in my FY21 budget. But again, staffing is really what we're looking at as a major cost driver.
What I'm hearing is that, so a curriculum change. Curriculum means, books, and this is how you study, and this is our study plan, or what have you. I know forgive me for being uneducated or ignorant in that regard. So student count being static stays the same. There could be a major curriculum overhaul or change that could affect your need for staffing without having your student body head count change.
If we were to, say, implement a new department at the high school, something along those lines that would, that doesn't currently exist, that could be a situation that would create staffing changes. We don't foresee that coming up down the pike. Right now, we're trying to really combat some of the higher class sizes that we are encountering, especially at our formative years, K1, 2, 3, even up to the 4th grade. Currently, right now, in some of our 4th grades, we have somewhere 27 to 28 students to a class, even on the Rainham side. Last year, in order to make the budget work, I'm very proud to state that with the work of the committee over the last 10 years, and the diligence of Kathy Macedo, who is our Director of Business Services, in the district, we have not had one layoff due to financial reasons since the major layoffs back in 2009-10. As Mr. Dutton talked about some of the lean years that we had, the district felt that as well. And 64 positions had to be eliminated during that time in order to make the budget work by the former superintendent, Dr. Jacqueline Forbes. Since that time, we've incrementally been able to bring back that staffing. So right now, what has happened, however, is if we feel like we weren't able to make the number last year, what we try to look at is some of our retirements, and instead of laying off a staff member, simply not, well, I shouldn't say simply because it does have an impact on our operations, but not fill that position through attrition. Because what ends up happening is if we do lay off staff, in order to handle the cost of unemployment, you have to actually lay off two staff members. It's a terrible financial practice. We hate to go down that road. So what we have been doing over time is, in order to make the budget work, is not fill positions through attrition of retirements. But over time, that impacts things such as class size, because I would say on the Rainham side, we have a 1st grade teacher last year who was really our only retirement in the district that we could not fill in terms of that. And now, to my left, I have Rachel King, and her daughter's sitting in a classroom of 26 to 27 students in a 1st grade in the Rainham side of the district. So we're really trying to be cognizant of that, and that we're trying not to lay off our staff members. First and foremost, we don't want to let go of good people. But through attrition, too, we realize the long-term impact that's having on class size as well, and the influx of folks moving into both of our communities. So we're really trying to look at bringing in the staffing to help combat some of those class size issues, and again, the social emotional piece that we're seeing that's on the uptick of our students, unfortunately, K-12.
Mr. Wood?
Thank you. So having people move into town speaks well of both the schools and the town, I think, and Rainham too. So that's the good part of the news, right?
Build it and they will come.
Right, exactly. So, we've been working with Tony and his financial staff for a number of years now, and creating long-term forecasts of our revenue pictures. He can tell you how many cars are leased. He can tell you how long the leases are, basically. We have a really good picture of, obviously, the real estate taxes, some of the other revenue sources and things like that. So he's been able to forecast probably 5 to 7 years into the future what our revenue stream looks like, and then model what happens in a downturn, fewer cars or fewer whatever. And so that really helps the budgeting process on the town side, because then we look at the revenue and then look at, as you did with the cost drivers, which departments are short and that sort of thing, and then try to match up the two. So my question to you and the committee is I don't really understand the long-term planning that goes on in the budget process. I hear, going out to the buildings and the staff and collecting what we need for next year, but what long-term planning can go on, or are there things that you could do to make changes in the planning process?
Well, we're always looking for ways, for cost avoidance measures to offset future budgets. One thing we do, similar to what Mr. Dutton spoke with free cash, we have what's called E&D, which is similar. It's free cash that we get certified. So what we actually try to do is that E&D at the end of the budget season, and that some of that monies that we have, is we try to look to see in the FY20 budget, what can we pre-purchase out of the FY19 to offset that. And we do that quite often. But as Mr. Dutton stated, you can't use those for reoccurring costs. You really shouldn't be using that to hire an additional teacher, because those monies might not be there in the bottom line for the following year. We also, through our E&D, when we certify that, we put a certain portion of that E&D towards our budget for the following year to offset the assessments to the town. So it's actually a ways to lower that. But we're always looking in long term of ways that we can offset cost. One of the biggest pieces that we've been doing, and we have our new director of facilities, Paul Fox, who's outstanding, is he's been working with Columbia Gas and National Grid and all of our energy companies to get grants to do updates with green initiatives that are going to offset costs for our energy and our heat. And in the last year or two, we've at the Williams Intermediate School, the high school, and I believe we're going to start looking at the Mitchell at the middle and a school on the Rainham side, start to replace all of our traditional lighting with LED. So that's a way over time, with the grant that we receive, the monies that we put in, it pays for it within the first year of savings, and then long-term, it's a long-term energy savings. We just did, through Columbia Gas, we got a grant to update the HVAC system at the the Bridgewater Rainham Regional High School. You might say it's 10 years old. Why are we replacing the HVAC system? There were some things that really truly needed to be updated and tweaked a little bit in terms of the control system and the way in which the boilers and whatnot were working somewhat inefficiently. So by upgrading the HVAC system, that over time then is going to reduce our energy costs. So we're really kind of focusing on things, staffing. I think the committee and the negotiations committees that deal with all of our collective bargaining units, our custodial, secretarial, our teachers, our paraprofessionals. We've worked really diligently in the last few negotiations to really try to harness and kind of control some of the salary scale situations that we have. We've created some creative ways to control our substitute use by providing, sick leave buyback and those types of things. And we're starting to see things like within our substitute lines, which were, sometimes 100,000 to 200,000 in the red at the end of the school year, right now having, finishing the school year in the black. So there are a lot of things that we're doing from a facility standpoint, through negotiations that we are doing that lends itself to planning long-term to help control some of the costs that we incur from year to year.
Insurance as well, Derek. Insurance.
Health insurance.
Oh, health insurance as well. We've done some, we switched over from Blue Cross Blue Shield a few years ago to Harvard Pilgrim. And in the last negotiation, we have stated that if the employees wanted to come off of our insurance, we would give them a stipend in order to do so. So a $1,500 stipend saves us $18,000 in health insurance. So there are definitely some creative things that I am so appreciative of the efforts of our negotiating committees that we've done to help control some costs that, a lot of us have inherited that salary scale. There's not much we can really do other than get creative ways to try to harness it a little bit or provide some incentives for sick leave buyback or, like Mr. Dolan just said, with our insurances.
Yes, sir.
Through you, to the superintendent and the school committee. First, thank you very much, all of you, for showing up, coming in tonight. This is great. I just have a couple things, and I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I'm coming off a cold. So back in early December, we had I'll call it a legislative invitation for both our state rep and state representative. And Angelo D'Amelio was actually able to attend, which I appreciated. One of the things that was brought up that I'm going to hold him true to was the transportation reimbursement for regional school districts. And doing my research, fortunately, I was a little too young to remember it when it came out. But doing the research, one of the things that I've seen is that cities and towns that regionalize were promised 100% reimbursement. Correct me if I'm wrong, 73% was the last reimbursement? So I reminded him of that promise and also reminded him that we will keep him true to supporting the legislation and the need for not only Bridgewater Raynham, but the other regional school districts to get that, because I know that your salaries are a big expense, your insurance is a big expense, but I can only imagine your transportation is a pretty big expense as well. So hopefully on your end, if you guys hear of things that we can do as well, and if we can even get that up 10%, I think that would be a significant number that could help us a lot. You had mentioned back in the dark days, 07, 08, 09, one of the hot buttons in Bridgewater was school choice. And we had a good amount of kids school choice out. Can you tell us over the last couple of years how that trend has changed?
Yeah. Well, school choice in regard to district-wide, we're definitely starting to see somewhat of a reduction in that. It's a situation, we have school choice, but we only open it up at the high school.
Right.
Only because we have an issue with our class size. So
I'm talking about the kids leaving.
Right, yeah. I think we ran some numbers, and we have about an exodus of maybe 100 students per year, but that is not only solely school choice. We're seeing a lot of it at the middle school level going into the high school years. We see it, but we also have to look at vocationals,
right,
agriculturals, parochials, private schools that we lose our students to. By opening up school choice on our end, 9 through 12, we're able to kind of offset that a bit and bring students in from neighboring districts as well. And then the monies that we do bring in through school choice, we have a revolving account for that, and we're able to offset some of the salaries and things that we use from an instructional standpoint at the high school only, because the way in which that works is if you're bringing in 9 through 12 monies for school choice, you can only utilize it with that population. So I think we're limiting the amount of exodus out. As Mr. Wood said, I think it's a testament to both Bridgewater and Raynham that we have these folks moving in. Same thing with my wife and I back in 2004. We were leaving our hometown. I had worked in Taunton for 10 years. I knew the reputation that both the Bridgewater Raynham Regional School District had. That was the biggest draw for us. It was going into a community that had good municipal services, had good school systems, and I think that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing that influx of folks coming in on both sides of the district, which is exciting, and we love it. Build in, they will come and give us all the kids that we can handle, but that's the thing. We need to be able to handle it and handle it appropriately,
right,
and sufficiently, and we need to make sure that These students are sitting in class sizes that are equitable across the district and that are reasonable for our teachers and our EASPs and folks at the building levels to handle, so that we are providing them the best educational services possible. So again, I'm excited about the amount of growth. It is a little concerning on our side of the district here in Bridgewater because we are down a school. So we are kind of, a little tight quarters in some of our buildings, which is a concern. But I think we're making very good progress through our Bridgewater School Building Committee. We had a meeting last night. On the 28th, the committee will be voting to put one option forward that will hopefully go to a ballot here in the town of Bridgewater in the early fall. And at that point, if it all goes well with the ballot box, we'll have some type of project that we can look forward to and hopefully have online by 2022. With that being said, we have some time, before 2022 that we got to kind of make this situation work. So I will say this, we have an incredible school committee. I have an incredible team of administrators, teachers, paraprofessionals, support staff, secretaries, administrative assistants, custodians, cafeteria workers. I have an incredible team to work with. So I know that, we're going to get through this time that we're getting through right now. And we know that we have the supports of the town and folks like you who are sitting here today that are giving us an ear to allow us to let you know some of the concerns we have, and working, continuing to work together with the town of Rainham as well to make sure that we have budgets that, again, the towns can handle, but then are also first and foremost servicing the needs of our students and staff. So we appreciate this opportunity and future opportunities to work collaboratively through our budget subcommittees. And I think, as Mr. Dutton said, I think that was great for the first time in my 10 years here in the district to have both towns in the same room, hearing the same message, and sharing and being collegial and try to share ideas of how best to support our students and staff within the district. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Mr. Gallagher?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have just a couple comments and maybe a question directed to the superintendent. And thank you all for coming here today. It's great to have these types of conversations, particularly this early. I know we had a meeting in October to get sort of a highlight as to what your needs are for the fiscal 20 budget. And I do remember 07 and 08 very, very well. And it was not a fun time to be an elected official trying to deal with the budgets that we were faced to cut on both sides of schools and general government. It was not a good time, but we have seen very good times the past several years where a lot of progress, as you have mentioned, has been made over these past several years. One of the concerns that I have with the upcoming budget, number one, is that as far as where it all starts with the state, and when the governor's budget comes out, probably later this month, as House 1, I think his team has already put together some scenario where there'll be like a 2.8% increase in revenue. And where all that revenue goes is really up to where the House 1 budget puts it. But when you mentioned you want 40, or the needs that you're in your system just on the staffing side is about 47 personnel. There's certainly going to be a challenge in this budget to meet that goal. And I do remember listening to the presentation regarding the real need for some emotional counseling positions at the school. That certainly seemed to be one of the priorities that the school committee had mentioned that day. So having said all that, talking about the future, there is some legislation that's been filed up on Beacon Hill that I think that obviously superintendents and town managers and town administrators throughout the state should be following. And I don't know what role you will play in this, but the funding formula has always been an issue. Mm-hmm. Whether it's fair, unfair, or how they do it. It's always been in question. It was questioned back in 07 and 08. It gets questioned every year. But there has been legislation filed on Beacon Hill. I forgot who the sponsors are. But can you address that? And I don't know if an actual bill has been written yet, but there seems to be in this legislative session for the next 2 years, there'll be some serious discussion about funding formula, whether it's towards special needs and the hit that a school system takes when that bill comes in, transportation, or just the overall funding formula on the curriculum side.
The funding formula, I went to a Day on the Hill last year, and actually Mr. George stated that he had reached out to Representative D'Amelia, and I was with Representative D'Amelia, and we had a presentation on the funding formula. The funding formula has not been changed since prior to ed reform in 1993. A lot has changed in the world since 1993, especially with the advent of ed reform. So that's definitely something that I know organizations like MASC, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, superintendents, that we are all trying to get that legislation pushed forward. Because that, we did some tentative numbers, just what that would mean. If the funding formula was changed the way in which the bill or the proposed bill is written, it would be almost like an influx of $3 million to our district. I mean, that in itself, along with, if, as Mr. George stated, we got some help with Chapter 71, transportation, which is probably about another $1.5 million to $2 million, that's $5 million. I could get those 47.5 positions in place. So yes, there is a lot of work that needs to get done. I think it's starting to pick up some traction. I think it was kind of one of those deals that was thrown out against the wall, see if it would stick a few years ago, but it has been a reoccurring theme, in a lot of the letters and newsletters that I'm at and listservs that I'm at from different superintendent organizations, that is something definitely we need to push to get that funding mechanism definitely updated and integrated. When people don't understand in terms of special education, it's an unfunded mandate. It's a situation where we have no say whether if a student needs an out-of-district placement and we do not have the means to provide those services within the district, we're obligated, ethically, morally, but also by the law, to provide a placement for those students. Those placements can be anywhere. If it's a collaborative that we belong to, like a Reed's Collaborative or a North River, those placements for one student could be about $50,000 plus transportation costs. But if it's a private institution that the collaboratives can't, for the needs that collaboratives can't handle, that can be up of $200,000 for one student to educate. That comes out of our operational budget. So there are a lot of things that we got to look at, that the circuit breaker funding, the basic operational mechanism for foundation budgets. And I'm hoping that, local legislators will help us and combat that. I, too, Mr. George, have had conversations with Representative D'Amelia about funding for transportation. Last year, he went and he asked me, give me a number of what you feel as though the district deserves. I said 100%, because that's what we were told during regionalization. Well, again, I was a little bit younger too, Mr. George, so I wasn't around during that time. But the original incentive to regionalize was that the 100% of your transportation costs were going to be taken, with the caveat if funding is available. And that's how they get around that one. So Representative D'Amelia did bring forth, he suggested 80%, which would have been another 7%, which really would have helped us in terms of that. And unfortunately, at the 11th hour, that got taken away from us. So that's kind of, monies that we kind of thought were coming our way that ended up not coming our way. So funding mechanism along with transportation, if those two situations could get rectified at the state level, that would really help us at the local level. And it would be a less burden on the towns in terms of the assessments we would need to offset those costs. So.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on that.
You may, Mr. Wood.
So I had read during the fall, I think it was in Beacon or something like that. This is similar to the issue Dennis was just talking about. that there was another initiative to try to get more money toward the special needs. Personally, I think that the state should provide whatever that need is, right? But the mechanism for operationally, it would be through the school systems, but the tuition, the transportation, and whatever else should really come from a state level. It's a collective issue. It's not a local issue, in my mind anyway. Is there a separate issue for the funding of special needs that might be underway or someone else is investigating beyond the formula methods that they're talking about now?
Oh, there's a circuit breaker money, right?
Is that
Circuit breaker
Circuit
money
breaker
is-
money.
circuit breaker money that we talked about? Also, I would say, though, one thing people don't understand, when you talk about regional transportation, even if we got 100%, that does not take into account special needs transportation to out-of-district placement. So we would still be on the hook for the
I'll still take the 100%.
Absolutely.
The normal.
Right.
Oh, absolutely, believe me. But that special education transportation and general transportation, Chapter 71 does not cover the cost of special ed transportation.
Right, and that's,
So that is still an
as we
operational
talked about
cost
last
of the
year, it's
district.
huge, right? So it's a big chunk of the transportation. I brought this up when Representative D'Amelia was here before, because I think if the state looks at it at a statewide level instead of, at a local level, because I think the BR program's great. I sat with, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but one of the leaders in your and it's not just about educational needs. Sometimes it's about vision or hearing or something other that needs special accommodation or extra accommodation. So it's not always about how to customize the education, but how to make the education accessible in that case. And again, I think it's something I wish the state would take up at a state level and let the local school systems handle how to implement it. But it'd be great to see 100% funding on that.
Absolutely. One thing I will say in terms of a cost avoidance measure, that I think the Director of Student Services, former Director of Student Services, Carla Thomas, she's since retired, but now Mr. Paul Joe Willows, that's probably you've, and he's doing an outstanding job, is over the course of the last 5 years, we've created a lot of in-district programming. So to some of the real significant needs of our students, where the students would have been identified to actually have to go to out-of-district placements, by hiring a teacher, a paraprofessional, and maybe some type of therapeutic component with a school adjustment counselor or a social worker, we've been able to create these in-district programs so that it costs money to save money. So we have to hire that staffing, but then one student that remains in district, because first of all, our goal too is we want to educate our students in the communities in which they live. That should be our first priority. But also, it's a cost avoidance measure in terms of if you were to retain 2 students that went to out-of-district programming that were $100,000 each with transportation, that already gives you the salaries for those 3 professionals that you've put in, and then you're able to bring students back from out-of-district programming, which then helps us offset our operational costs in our Department of Student Services. So that's another kind of, you asked Mr. Wood before, some of the pre-planning type things that we've done. Proactively, we've tried to create a lot more in-district programming to prevent students from having to go out, but also being able to bring students back in district that have resulted in out-of-district placements in previous years.
We also have to cover the move-ins of IEPs coming into town. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but instead of having a one-on-one for some students, we were able to contract with North River Collaborative, so that we did consulting versus giving them one-on-ones type of thing.
And a lot of times when we go through our collaboratives for staffing, what happens is we are able to save the monies on the benefits packages. So we're just basically paying the salaries without having to pay the benefits for health insurance and whatnot. So that's a nice way that would, in terms of the relationships that we have with our collaboratives. Sometimes it's difficult to find specific people with those backgrounds as well, whereas the collaboratives have such a strong special ed staff staffing, that they may have people that are, that we can go to right away and have within a day or two, rather than waiting, the posting of a 10-day post and interviewing and whatnot. But also, it's nice to have that relationship with our collaboratives, and that we do save that monies on the benefits piece as well. So it's a little bit more cost-effective to go that route.
I'll only add one thing we didn't bring up tonight, and I just wanted to thank the superintendent and the district's director of facilities, Paul Fox. I think we've made, and I'm not going to go into much detail for obvious reasons, but I think we've made a lot of good progress on safety upgrades at the schools, and so we look forward to doing more of that, but I did want to let the council know that it's been something that's ongoing.
And I did want to thank Mr. Dutton and members of zoning, and we had one developer that I had attended a zoning board meeting, met with a developer, and was able to get some mitigation monies to help offset some costs that we had for some of our safety concerns. We were able to, at the former high school where the elementary students are currently housed, we created a pedestrian trap, which basically, when you were buzzed in initially to the school, you automatically had access to the entire physical plant. Where now it's, you come in, you're buzzed in, and then you have another set of doors that you need to enter.
I think they call it a waiting area, not a trap.
Yes.
Vestibule.
Well, I had to, it's actually called a man trap, but I said we should call, I became politically correct and called it a pedestrian trap.
Just saying.
Pedestrian waiting area.
Thank you.
So we were able to do that, and also do that at the Williams Intermediate School, as you know. Obviously, first and foremost, it's my responsibility as a superintendent to make sure that our students and staff are coming to environments that are first and foremost safe. So I do thank Mr. Dutton, I think, and the members of the zoning to allow me to meet with that developer, and thank that the developer for providing us some mitigation funds to help us improve the safety and quality of our buildings in terms of that respect. So thank you, Mr. Dunn, for reminding me of that.
Mr. Dolan, did you have a comment?
I do. So to your point earlier, Mr. George, about how the council could support potentially issues that we might have. And I think I've had this conversation with all of you. I apologize. I'm getting a cold. You're getting over one. I'm getting it.
I didn't give it to you.
No, you did not.
That'd help for you to pull your mic closer.
Oh, sorry. One of the pieces of the budget every year is that we have to plan for is being billed back by the town for permits or land usage. We have to budget for that. You give us that money and we turn around and have to give it right back to you. We need to look at that. That doesn't make any sense, because when we agree to a number, the town and both towns and the school committee, that shouldn't be a factor. That money is being taken away from our kids and our schools and given back to the town. We have to figure that out. That's illogical to me. So that's one piece. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to talk a little bit about the Mitchell School Building Project and invite you all on this Thursday, either at 10:30 or at 7 p.m., 10:30 in the morning at the Senior Center, or 7 p.m. at the high school. We're doing another presentation, public presentation. I'd ask you to attend those if you can and hear from the members of the town and their concerns. Late last night, we sent out a survey, and we've gotten 504 results at about 5 o'clock this afternoon already. So we are getting great information back from the community. I encourage all of you to attend that if you can, one of those. The survey closes on the 14th. And it's posted on just about every Facebook page, the district website, Miss Rushton and I posted to every Facebook page last night, the district website, the town website. So it's out there. People are finding it. There are copies at the town clerk, hard copies at the town clerk's office. So if anybody wants a hard copy to fill out, they can stop in there and return it there as well. And then we've been asked by Mr. Fitzgibbons to come to a council meeting on the 22nd to do a presentation to all of you, which we will do. But I really would like to encourage you to attend on Thursday to hear what members of the community are saying.
Michael, can I just ask you, I think you said 6 o'clock in the evening?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock at the high school. And for those of you with children and anybody who's watching, BASE will be providing babysitting, childcare, free of charge.
I think today, as of today, Mr. Dolan, over 500 folks have participated in the survey, which is great.
I got my
Who's ever
email.
put a survey out.
I got it. I haven't done it yet. I apologize. We'll get that. I'll get that.
Got some time.
There's a +1 there.
We can check your URL, so just make sure.
Does anyone else on the school committee have any comments?
I just want to make one other note about the high class sizes.
Can you put the microphone closer to you?
Just another note about the high class sizes and the amount of staffing requests we have. This is a preliminary budget. It's everything that all the principals wish they could have for their students. But obviously, the committee, we're going to look at that and do our due diligence and figure out what is possible, what is a priority. And really, a lot of us, we all agree that the social emotional component of that is a huge priority right now. Excuse me. My daughter is in first grade, and she has 26 kids. For first grade with one teacher, that's hard. They're learning to read. They're working on a lot of things. However, it's 26 kids with a lot of them might have social and emotional needs. They might be having a hard time, having anxiety, need to leave the classroom. That's a lot for the one teacher to help that child and all of them. So with the school adjustment counselors, our thought is if those kids were able to get the help they needed out of the classroom or even come into the classroom and help with that, that 26th high number of children in the classroom wouldn't be as bad if those kids were regulated and able to be in the classroom. So that's a piece that one counselor could help a lot of the different classrooms. So that's one of the things that we've also been looking at. We can't get all of the staffing, but maybe how can we help a high majority of our teachers and our students? So that's also something that, we try and take into account. How can we get creative and help the highest number of kids we can with the staffing request that we're going to get?
Like a lunch bunch? Is that something, right?
Yep, those are social skills,
Yeah.
social skill groups, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a great point. It's a situation we have, if we have to prioritize, staffing, and it is a situation where we can't, really truly to really combat class size district-wide, we need 20 teachers. Because that's what we've identified, 20 teachers, 20 areas where we have high class size. You could have one counselor to a building could help those one or two students in that class size of 26 become regulated, be a little bit more controlled within that environment, and it may be a little bit easier for that teacher to handle that higher class size. So that's a great point by Mrs. King, and those are some of the things that we have to do in terms of, if we're not going to get 20 bodies to totally combat class size district-wide and make it equitable, maybe it's one of those situations where we need to look at, can we hire one or two counselors to help that building to help offset some of those issues with the higher class size and some of those students who do become dysregulated throughout the course of the day. So great point by Mrs. King.
Mr. Wood.
So I'm old, but I remember when I was a kid that, we had, I don't know what the class size was, I don't know what the count, but I remember having parent volunteers in the classroom. Does the district use parent volunteers at all? Because it sounds like in first grade, having one or two parents go between first grades to help the teacher might be a benefit that could really pay off benefits.
And we do. And
I'm there every Friday.
I'm sitting next to one because I walked the building the other day and she's in there making I think it was a
Grinch Day.
Grinch
Yeah.
Day, you know. So yeah, it is. No, the situation is that we have so many families now that have both mom and dad working. That it's difficult to have that that high number of volunteers that are going to be there on a regular basis. But we do have great, on the Rainham side, we have RAVE, which is the Rainham Association of Volunteers for Education. So we have those folks that come in. We do have a good, group of parents on the Bridgewater side as well. When you get to be in the middle school times, the middle schoolers don't necessarily want mom coming in and Grinch Day. So you start to see those parent volunteers usually at the K-4 population, and it kind of weans off once you get 5 through 12. But we do have quite a few parents that come in on a regular basis. And we have, been trying to get creative in terms of, we can't have teachers, can we hire paraprofessionals or proctors or, someone that is not at a teacher salary but can provide supports within those classrooms. So we do try to get as creative as we can, but we do tap into our volunteers as well.
Grinch Day was huge. My son's in first grade. He was psyched. I heard about the Grinch and the police involvement.
Oh, there you go.
It was excellent. It made for good dinner conversation. Also, a couple of things that, just since you're all in front of me, and you as the superintendent, the change at the old BR, which is Mitchell at the middle side of it, where I bring my son, or my wife does for that matter. That switch you did with the flow of traffic and how you deal with that. Stroke of genius. Thank you for that. The whole town thanks you for that.
It was Mr. Bray's idea, but I'll take credit.
Okay. Yeah, it was.
That's what good leaders do. No.
Pretty impressive.
We did work very closely with Captain Schlatz and Chief Del Monte and our SRO officers, and we did do that over the summer to look at, how to correct that traffic flow. Obviously, that was created as a high school, not as an elementary school, so we've had some issues over the course of the last few years with that. So we had some ideas, and that one seems to be working out quite well. We still have an issue down at the Williams Intermediate School. I don't know if there's really an answer for that. It's a building that was basically built for 3 grade levels. We have 4 in there currently because of the 7th grade. So we have an influx of another 250 students, which, creates issues for us. So we are looking at some ideas there on the Rainham side. We're having issues as well at our elementary schools because, again, our population's growing, so we have more parents coming in and dropping off students. So we're working with our towns there, and the director facility is going to bring in a traffic consultant to look at some of the traffic flow concerns we have there. We may even ask them if they could take a peek over at the Williams Intermediate School to see if they have any, ideas for us and options moving forward. But that's definitely, a concern of the committee and myself as the superintendent, that, traffic flow, has been an issue at a lot of our buildings, but it seems to be working well, or at least better than it has at the Mitchell, at the middle.
Sure, yeah. And then for me, just one last thing, unless something else pops in my head. So is it school choice where someone can go to a different town, right? That's, again, pardon my ignorance. And then kids can come here and enjoy the benefits of our school system. So I recently had a couple approach me that I knew, and their child goes to school here, but they don't live here. But they like their interaction that they've had as parents with your staff and their student experience that their kids are going through so much that we're now going to have the benefit of them paying taxes and owning a home in Bridgewater. So there's that aspect is kind of cool, which led me to a question or a thought. So you obviously know how many students that take part in that program. Are you ever aware, is there a mechanism for you to be aware when something like that happens where a student's family does move into Bridgewater? I don't know if there's any...
So in terms if they were here originally on school choice and then decided to move in?
Yeah, I know one's the town and one's you guys. I don't know how your data interacts, if at all, in that regard.
Well, what would end up happening is we have our central registration, so that at that point they would have to come and actually enroll as a student So the sending district would no longer be on the hook to pay us the school choice amount. But what would happen now is they would be counted in our October 1 numbers, and they would then be part of our Chapter 70 mechanism.
Okay.
So that's how that works.
Okay.
That they become part of our SIMS at the next October 1 number as a seat. And if a student does have the way Chapter 70 and the SIMS works, if it's a student with special needs or whatnot, they're coded differently, and you may receive additional funding from the state based upon the need of the student.
Anyone else on this side of the? Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, all of you, really, thank you. And
Appreciate
I just wanted
the
to
invite.
throw out a few more
Sure.
dates, though. And again, thank you for inviting the school committee to this meeting. Mr. Swenson will be doing his preliminary budget on January 23rd at the Rainham Middle School at 7 o'clock. The school committee will do our budget presentation on our March 13th meeting, with the final vote on March 27th, and both these meetings will be at the high school, and all these meetings are open to the public, and we do have public comment available, and that is all. Thank you very much. And with that, are we all set? So motion to adjourn the school committee portion of the joint council meeting? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
We'll take 2 minutes.
Recess? Yes, we'll take a couple of minute recess. Do I just proclaim that, or do we have to say an aye? Recess, couple minutes.
Information too, a lot of information at the MMA convention.
Say more.
All right, let's,
Yes, long 2 minutes.
Amen.
yeah,
It's 9 o'clock.
yeah, it is 9 o'clock, and I've been up since 3.
Okay, now, time for the speed
gonna
round.
fly through this
Take your seats, speed round, okay.
All right.
So now we're going back.
We're still in
You
J.
got to do B.
I'm looking for J,
Sign ordinances.
Go back.
yep. So, Mr. Columbosi, we have a discussion item for sign ordinance compliance.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I was just concerned, I wanted to alert everyone to Section 7.64 of our zoning ordinance, which states, internally illuminated signs are not permitted in the Gateway Business District and Central Business District. And this was passed at a town meeting before the council, so at least 6 years ago. And I'm just concerned that we haven't adhered to this. There's been a lot of businesses in the Central Business District with internally lit signs, and I'm wondering a couple things, why that's happened, how we can stop it, and if there's anything we can do about signs that exist that don't conform to this.
Are those for, were any of the signs that were already there grandfathered in before, and we're talking about newer ones after that was passed?
Well, this was at least 6 years old, so anything since then shouldn't have happened, but presumably anything before that was grandfathered.
Okay.
Yeah. So this concerns me. I mean, in the new Skips liquor, there are a bunch of neon signs in the window, which I don't think even before this was passed were conforming. But so I'm wondering how we can deal with this, and if it's too late to fix what is it, water under the bridge at this point?
Is it?
No, I think if there's a, somebody out of compliance or hasn't, or done something after the fact, then it's, there's no tolling period. I mean,
We can play catch up.
Yeah, we can send the building inspector out and do a review of the signs and make sure that they're in conformance.
Okay.
I'm just asking a question, but what I would initially look at that as external signs. Signage for outside of the building.
Right.
If someone's got a neon sign inside their window, is that necessarily going to fall under that signage rule?
I'm not exactly sure of the answer, but I believe it does. I think there is some limitation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be the clarification. Now, if it's if it's inside the building showing out, it could be one thing. You could be right. I don't know. I looked at that as not having free-flowing signs all over the business district outside of the buildings, flashing lights, things like that. It would destroy it. But you could be, bless you, you could be right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just probably worth getting clarification on that as well.
I just find it problematic that we have an ordinance that we just haven't been following for 6 years.
Mr. Wood, you have some input.
Yeah, so I think that we're in the process of looking at all zoning ordinances, right? So I haven't actually seen any signs that bother me. I think it's, I'm not going to try to paraphrase Mr. Fitzgibbons, but it's about the Brockton rule that you don't have to worry about the lighted signs, you have to worry about when the lights go out, right? The businesses go dark and things like that. So there's zoning ordinances, I think, against A-frame signs, and there's all sorts of things. It's like, I think we need to take a comprehensive look at this. It's like, what signs are really offensive? I'm sure it was passed a lot longer than 6 years ago, right? Because we've been here since 2010, and
it was at least 8 years ago.
It was probably in the 80s or maybe 90s when people had stuff going up all the time. But I think we probably need a redefinition, as Mr. George said. Is it interior signs? Is it exterior signs? Is it signs overheads? Is it LED lights? There's all sorts of other things, and I think it needs to be part of the comprehensive zoning item.
Yeah, because if memory serves me correctly, may not, a lot of that discussion had to be around the character of downtown and to try to keep it from taking away from that, but that was a long time ago.
Ms. Loesch?
Just to follow up from what Mr. Combo was saying, the other half of that is we have to ensure that who's ever approving the businesses, the planning board and the building inspector are aware of what's on the books, so therefore not allowing those things to happen. So we're not going out there after the fact. They shouldn't have been done initially, and we should just ensure that we're all practicing what we've already passed into law. So I think that's the bigger part of it. I don't care about lights, as long as they're not too flashy. But if that's a rule in town, then we have to ensure that we're following.
Let's be a nation of laws and not, and or whatever.
Mr. Gallagher.
I agree there needs to be some look at this in a comprehensive way than to, I think what has been done in the past, some of these signs have been, that have been gone up, I feel as though it's a pick and choose type of policy, If people scream loud enough about a certain sign, then the building inspector will go out there and do something about it. Particularly with the Prisco's Market down the street, when he first put his sign up, he had to go through a lot of hoops and had to deal with a lot of challenges by the town to have his sign out there, a lot. And, and he also wanted to, expand his building out front and spend and invest over $2 million in this community. And due to circumstances, he had to jump through hoops, and he backed off that project when it could have invested over $2 million in this community and provided more jobs. And the sign thing is real, but I don't see too many problems with some of the neon signs. There was also a business down here on the Common a few years back. They wanted to put a certain type of sign up, and they were told they couldn't. So it needs to be a comprehensive thing with this zoning ordinance study that's going on, should address it, but the enforcement needs to be there, and it can't be a pick and choose enforcement. It has to be holistic.
I just think it sets a dangerous precedent to not follow our laws. If we think it's a bad ordinance, we should change it, but we shouldn't just disregard it. That just seems like really bad governance.
If
Go ahead, Mr. Wood, you may.
It's a discussion, but if we say, okay, the open sign down at the nail salon is in violation because it's inside the window, it's neon, then what do we say to Cumberland Farms is posting their gas prices that change by the minute? Or even when you pull up to a gas pump and they have an advertisement that's working, is that a violation of the sign ordinances because it's an internal, mechanism? So I think this is vague, by the way. The law is written, so enforcement is very difficult.
If there's a light coming from inside the sign, then it's internal. It doesn't really seem vague to me.
I think what, I just did review the very small provision, and it's not particularly well-written, so we know we have to upgrade and update the sign ordinance, so hopefully that will be part of the process coming up. But in the meantime, I'll make sure that the building inspector goes out and things that are obviously violations, we can give folks notice. And if there are things that are more judgment calls, then it probably makes sense to wait until there's more clarity with the sign ordinance.
So what's the process for that? Do I vote to let him speak?
Wait till the end.
Yeah.
Until citizens'
Okay.
comments.
Other councilors?
Thanks. That's
Other
all I
discussion?
have. Yep.
Okay.
Back to G.
Now we go to, that would be F.
I move to go back to G for license transactions.
Second.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Issue, you have a hearing.
So
Didn't we do the hearing?
the hearing we didn't do yet, so we have to go back to the hearing because we're actually going to be pushing the 3-hour limit on it, which if I haven't sit.
Oh, I thought we
did do the hearing at some
I thought we said we were going to move it.
We moved it.
We moved it.
In this process for the night.
Oh, I
we
thought
continued, so it's been rolling in the background.
Got it.
I thought it was the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let it be known that.
I moved to
this
H, hearings.
Oh, okay, we didn't move it to
F,
our meeting, we
hearings.
just moved-
Okay, so
Yes.
there's a motion to move back to F, hearings. Is that made and seconded?
Second.
Made and seconded, discussion, none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, those against? Okay, so we had that rolling until 9:12. So it's open to the public. So is the petitioner here? Yes.
I'll explain. It's quite simple. It's just a transfer of funds in order for us to be able to execute the lease agreements and pay the lease amounts for ambulance number 1, ambulance number 3, and our plow and sand vehicle for payment number 1. So it's just a transfer for those 3 items. For those that don't see it at home, it's $61,025.03 for the ambulance lease 3. And ambulance lease 1 is $67,570.02, and the plow and sand vehicle is $46,964.07.
General questions from the public? Seeing none. Public speaking in favor? None. Public speaking in opposition? None. Questions from the council? Seeing none. Okay. Close the hearing at 9:13. Motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for approval. Discussion? None. So those in...
Roll call.
Yeah, roll call vote.
Mr. Columbotus?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Haley?
Yes.
Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mrs. Loesch?
Yes.
7 in favor, none against.
Thank you. Now on to G. License transactions. Michael, are you jostling around to get to something?
Nope. Both of these license transactions are renewals. They both submitted prior to the end of the year, but did not make it onto your last December meeting. So they're here for your renewal. Everybody is in compliance, and actually, as of today, you'll see in your materials that Flippin' Burgers had not been inspected. That has, and that is fine. So both of these are meet all the requirements.
Okay, move to approve.
All right. One at a time or both?
One. We're reading.
We're going to do one.
the flipping.
P219-001 Flipping Burgers.
Yes.
Motion made to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wood. Discussion? None. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, petition P2019-002 for secondhand Golden Pond annual renewal. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? None. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Presentations. Seeing none, and now for the town manager's report.
It is brief. I'll try to be brief. I think the councilors know that our assistant in the town manager's office, Michael Spagone, has left to pursue a finance-related job in the town of Avon, and so he's getting back to his roots a little bit, and we certainly wish him well. But the downside is that it leaves us quite short-handed for the foreseeable future, so I just ask folks to have a little patience as we try to make sure that we get done all the things that he was doing on a day-to-day basis. So I would appreciate that. We already talked a little bit about the Mitchell School committee progress. There is a session on Thursday, 2 informational sessions for folks to attend, ask questions, so forth. And I'll repeat it again, one at the senior center at 10:30 in the morning, and one at the high school at 7 p.m. in the evening. And what we didn't really talk about was that the school committee, the school building committee, its charge is to narrow down the options to one, so that one option, preferred option, can be submitted to the MSBA for approval at its April meeting. That submission has to happen February 20th if we're sticking with the April meeting. So far, the cost, very general cost ranges, which are based on average square footage costs for similar projects statewide, range anywhere from $21 million for repair to almost $74 million for a completely new school. So public input is important on the issue, and so I'd look forward to that and encourage folks to attend. The website, there's a special website that should contain almost all the information that's generated by the school building committee, and that is, if you Google Bridgewater School Project, all one word, it'll bring you right to the site. So again, that's bridgewaterschoolproject.com. I am putting the final touches on a submission to the Mass Cultural Council for $50,000 of feasibility funding to look at the Old Town Hall as a cultural and art center, and that is will be on its way on Friday. We've had good response, and we've engaged the cultural council, local cultural council, to give us some help with that application, as well as others. So we're excited to get that submitted, and we're optimistic that it would be a great redevelopment opportunity within the opportunity zone, and really create an attractive downtown, or be part of creating a very attractive downtown. Also, some of you are aware, and all of you will be aware now, that town charter changes, the town charter, Bridgewater Town Charter changes have cleared both the House and the Senate, and they're awaiting signature by the governor, who has until January 11th to sign that legislation. I talked to our representative, Mr. D'Amelia, today, and he assured me that he's going to be busting down the door in the governor's office to make sure that that gets executed in a timely manner. The one thing I will add to that, question came up, and the governor's office called me to ask, wanted to make sure that all the changes, any changes that the House and Senate had made, were okay. I mean, it's not as if we're going to start from scratch, but I did go through, and other than some very minor changes, I think it's basically all the changes that the Charter Committee and the Council had agreed to. So that is in the works, and I'll have hopefully very good news by Friday. Town is also undergoing its municipal vulnerability preparedness program. This is actually a pretty accelerated process. And it's designed to identify areas in town that are susceptible to natural and man-made disasters. It's state-funded, and there's actually quite a big push at the state level to get communities to identify areas where they have vulnerabilities, and plan for what they're going to do about it, or what we're going to do about it. So the efforts here actually dovetail very well with our zoning and comprehensive planning work, and we're going to try to make sure that anything that comes out of the MVP process is used to make wise zoning choices moving forward. Paid parking program begins January 14th. Laz Parking will have staff right on the ground, helping people and guiding people and answering questions. And also signage will be going up later this week, just in preparation for that on January 14th. So just a reminder for folks that are watching, cash is not accepted on the on-site machines, but you can certainly use credit card. Also, you use a smartphone, It's a widely used app, and you can go onto the town website and see exactly how that works. We've also made sure that all BSU staff, students, and visitor, well, as many visitors as we know of, will know about the paid parking program and where they can park and the details on how to use it. So for anybody that's traveled to Boston, anybody that's traveled to Plymouth, anybody that's done any traveling almost, and has had to pay to park will know exactly what to do. But I know and recognize that it's going to be sort of new to a lot of people. We've continued our good progress on Elm Street. The engineers are working on 100% design, and we've begun to interact with National Grid, from whom we need, actually we need to do a taking of property, corner of Elm Street and Pleasant, so that'll come back to the council to do a vote. It'll be a friendly taking. National Grid is just confirming our on-the-ground plans and making sure that it's in order for them, but they have no objection to that. So that'll be coming to the council for vote sometime relatively soon. DeBartolo's construction, DeBartolo Company is the developer proposing a 300 to 400 square foot, 1,000 square foot facility at the northern end of Elm Street, and they are progressing as well. They've filed for site plan review of the planning board, so that will go on sometime this month. And their plan is to actually begin construction in March and wrap up in December. So that timeline should merge fairly well with our road construction. We will be done for the most part by the end of December, assuming the weather cooperates, and we'll be back in 2020 to do whatever balance of the work needs to be done. But in terms of being able to use Elm Street, that work should be done by the end of this calendar year. The Highway Department has informed, the Roadways Department has let us know that they're going to sponsor a Christmas tree drop-off, and we'll get that information out, but there'll be an area down at the Highway Barn where folks can bring their Christmas trees, and the department will shred those up, chip those up. We're finding that that's better than folks putting them out by the street and having them blow around and not get picked up by regular vendors. So that's something that the Roadways Department is doing this year, which is actually really great. I think last meeting I mentioned our tax foreclosure sale. We grossed, I don't remember that I had the exact figures, but we grossed $242,000 out of that. And I did want to correct something that I may have said incorrectly, but the funds generated from that do return to the general fund. They're sort of, they create on a year-to-year basis. You don't pay your taxes, you create a deficit in the general fund. So that goes back to the general fund, and then will flow through as free cash after the close of the fiscal year. Speaking of close of fiscal year, we're told that the FY 2018 audit is completed, and those auditors will be presenting the results at an upcoming council meeting. Tony's working on finalizing his responses to the audit findings, but I've not heard the details of the audit, but I haven't been receiving any calls late on a Sunday night telling me that the whole place is about to go down, so I take that as a good sign. The LED streetlight initiative has begun. Tanco will be on site. They're the consultant contractor we're using to do the townwide assessment. They will wrap up that assessment fairly quickly, but they're looking at all street lighting, both town-owned and non-town-owned, but they'll give us an assessment of the current state of our streetlights. They'll give us, usually what happens is they find lights that the town doesn't know about and that National Grid doesn't know about that are part of our lighting system as well. So once that's all done, we'll go through and we'll do a design for a townwide LED conversion. And if all goes well and we secure Green Communities funding as we expect to, then those installations should be completed by this time next year. And I'll only give out my regular pitch. We now have openings on the Finance Committee, Board of Health, Conservation Commission, among other boards. We've actually had, I talked to John Charlin, the chair of the Citizen Advisory Committee, and they are really impressed with the folks that have been coming through interviews with them. So that's good sign. We're getting some great volunteers. And for anybody that wants to be part of that resurgence, just let me know, and we'll put you in a place that is best suited for your skills and abilities and competencies and interest. And that is what I have.
Thank you, Mr. Dutton. We have council questions for Mr. George.
Thank you, through you, to the town manager. Two things. One, I think we have to be overt on explaining the light initiative, because there's people out there that think that they're looking at traffic lights. So I don't know how we do it, but we need to educate people that this is street lights, and the traffic lights are a totally different ballgame from there. So I'm just, you probably saw the same things I did as well. In your operational update, you had talked about the Bridge Street project. And what I'd like to know is, have we determined who actually approved the drainage structure that, according to this, wasn't in the original plans, that basically caused a deterioration of the bridge that we've had to go and fix?
Short answer is no, we haven't. Longer answer is that it's probable that we won't find any paperwork on that, which is not, unfortunately, not uncommon. But I want to make sure people know it's not the bridge that we had to repair. It's the abutting, bank that we had to repair.
Sorry,
so I don't want people to go over the bridge.
Well, it needed repair.
Correct.
So and the repair is not free.
No, hardly.
No.
Hardly.
So we have no historical paperwork, nothing that showed the process of who determined that was to be done.
I'm not positive on this one yet. I mean, we've got more digging to do. I can tell you generally, especially when it comes to water and sewer, the water and sewer superintendent is challenged because there are very few historical records on where water mains exist, where sewer, we've got sewer mains that have crossed people's property with no communication, no easements. So we've got a lot of those types of issues to fix. I probably shouldn't hazard to guess on this one, but it wouldn't surprise me that there's no as-built drawing of this repair, or no as-built drawing of this specific catch basin that was installed sort of after the fact or during the construction and as an afterthought. It may have been something that was done on site, because somebody thought they had a good idea.
Do we know when this actually was done? What year, at least?
I think that bridge, actually the bridge surface, not the whole bridge, but the bridge surface was replaced in the 2000s, I want to say. It had been closed for a while because it was in poor condition. And then I don't recall.
There was a big repair done in 2010 because of the flooding.
Right, I remember that.
There was a huge structural problem. That's probably when they put in whatever the structure is that you're talking about.
So probably 8 years ago. Roughly 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah, I'll ask Ron Ledoux to take a really close look and see if we have actual as-built drawings. Was that the FEMA project?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll take a look.
Okay.
And see.
I mean, I think for the magnitude of what needed to be done, we just sat around talking about budgets, talking about money, and we're restricted on this, and to see something that was done as an afterthought that wasn't approved, wasn't part of the plan, and has actually caused us problems, I think we need to do a lot more digging. Thank you.
Mr. Gallagher?
Thank you, Mr. President. A few questions. In your operational report, you talk about the abandoned mobile station and what the the owner's looking for versus what the assessed value is. What do you think the next step should be? I mean, I think you put in one of the capital budgets money for an appraisal. I think, has we approved that already, or is it'll be coming? You think that should be the next logical step?
I think correct. I think the next logical step, if that's the direction we're going to go, is to spend a little bit of money on the appraisal, because clearly there's a huge disconnect between the assessed value and what the owner happens to think that it's worth. And so we need, if we go down that eminent domain route, that is our first, statutory obligation, is to do an appraisal.
So would we have to take a vote from the council to initiate the eminent domain taking?
Right.
So that would be step one. So someone would have to sponsor a resolution or an order to do such. Do you think this is now the time to do that because we're just so far apart? Or do you know of any other endeavors he may be looking at to do with that property? I mean, he did clean it up as far as taking the weeds off. It kind of looked better with the weeds now that we see what he's got there. But anyway,
we don't even know if he did that. Someone could have gone in and just done it on their own.
But he must have got permission from the owner.
The reason we were going to do the appraisal first is you also have to vote, and it makes sense to do it simultaneously in appropriation, obviously, if we're going to be doing the taking.
Right.
Because those are the damages. So that was our next step. I mean, I can tell you we've made forward movement in that. We've done a title exam on the property. We're starting the process. I don't know if you want to get into more detail in a public setting, or if that's an executive session type conversation, because I suspect litigation will probably ensue from it. But we certainly have started the process. And the next step is for you all to vote on an appraisal, if that's the route you want to go.
To vote on an appraisal or to vote to take it?
Well, you need to vote the appropriation to do the appraisal.
Correct.
I think once you have enough information to know what the appraisal said,
okay,
then at that step, I think what
Correct.
town attorney's saying is, then you can have a concurrent two-track process. One is to vote the taking, and the other is to vote the appropriation.
Correct.
Okay, and when should that be initiated by one of us to do the appraisal, or is that already in the mix in the capital plan?
In the mix.
And that'll come when?
I think I talked to Tony. I think that's coming. I should.
I'll touch base with you later. If not, we could do it as a separate one then, because the money's there.
Yes.
Just have to vote whether we want to do it or not. Second thing on Rainbow's End playground, I know you were going to look to see if you could search for that agreement between the state and the soccer association. Have you made any headway with that?
I do have a copy of that agreement, and I did reach out to the soccer folks who have certainly agreed to come in, sit down, and have a discussion with the DOC, myself, and them, so that we can sort out exactly, what the future of that should be, and hopefully we'll all be in agreement, and we can sort of move beyond sort of the current stalemate.
I've also heard from a member of the Bridgewater youth soccer people, in addition to some people that have had a lot of play in building that Rainbow's End playground. But I was also told that in that agreement, there's other land. It's not, there is a potential of another piece that's in that agreement that may be a better location if we do go down the dog park route. So, I hope to reach out to this individual this week and talk to him and see what he's got. And then, I don't know if he's the same person you reached out to, but I wanted to try to have that meeting with him and see what this other piece is. He said there's another piece that's in the agreement that the soccer association's been kind of authorized to use that might be a better location. So I'll look into that. Then, not that Rainbow's End might not be the place, but, you know, some people might not think it is. Some people think it's a good place, or there might be another alternative that's just as good. So I just wanted to know you have the agreement. The other thing, the charter timeline, if the governor signs it on Friday, what's the next step? Does it come back to the council? Does it go back to rules and procedures, or what's the mechanism that, and is there plenty of time, if he signs it on January 11th, whatever we have to do or our subcommittee has to do, do you think there'll be plenty of time to put it on April ballot, or do you think it's cutting it close?
I think if the council chooses to put it on the ballot, because that's your decision, you have roughly 35 days prior to the election to vote to put something on the ballot. So I think you've got plenty of time in that regard. I don't think, and the town attorney can correct me, but I don't think that decision has to go to committee. So you can vote to put it, you could vote to put it on the ballot.
Yeah.
It doesn't need any referral or recommendation from a committee.
Okay. That's it.
Mrs. Loesch, you still have
Just to follow up on that, don't we need to figure out how we want it on the ballot? And we would do that at the council level?
That is one change. That's the one change that that's the most major change that I saw that the House and Senate either or both made, is they made it one vote. They said, this is how it's going to be. It's going to be presented. There you go.
Okay.
So we can't choose? We can't break the questions out? Okay.
The way it came back now. And that I have no idea why.
Mr. Wood?
Thanks. Just as background, town manager and I communicated earlier today about the water treatment plant. Several times, a lot of times each year, people in my district complain about the smell coming off the water treatment plant. And I've had discussions with a number of different people, and it seems that it may be tied, I'm saying may because I'm not an expert in this area, it may be tied to the turnover of the fertilizer that's in the shed down there. And so I read this morning on one of the pages that there was, a smell, report of a smell, that the fire department came out and checked again. And I asked the town manager this morning if in fact the heap had been turned over today, and it had. So, Mr. Dutton, I think maybe what we need to do is closely monitor when people in the area smell that, tie it back to events down there like the turnover, and then find out if there's maybe some operational thing, like if it were done not on a cold morning, but on when the temperature is above 50, do we get the same effect that'd make the neighborhood happier, not to have to smell this? It's really a chemical smell. And I can sympathize with the people that called this morning, because I did that 10 years ago. I had no idea I thought it was a natural gas leak or something going on. And it turns out it's probably just a water treatment plant. Is that something we can do?
We can.
I can find some volunteers for you. Smells.
We can certainly track when we receive the most complaints. That's easy to do. And the one piece of hopefully good news is that as part of the plant, as as the council knows, we're going to have to replace that plant in the next 10 years, over the next 10 years. And as part of that, I'm going to make sure that we do some kind of odor control down there, because we currently have nothing. And there are things you can do to control the odors quite relatively easily.
Other questions? Okay. My eyes are drying out. Committee reports. Anybody? No.
Well, just that the Budget and Finance met on the Order 37 there, which is C, the acceptance of the revenue, and we voted unanimously to support this order.
Excellent. No other reports. Moving to legislation for action. Order FY 19013, highway garage for Spring Street. We've got some proposed amendments, I see. Do you have that in front of them?
What do you want me to read? Our proposed
If
amendment?
somebody could, that'd be great.
Yeah, we just thought it made sense to put a deadline on this order. So we suggest that it read, further ordered that the town manager receive bids / quotes for the demolition of the building by April 1st, 2019. And we wanted, I wanted to ask the town manager if he felt, I wouldn't want to pass this if he doesn't think it's doable. So I want to hear from him on that.
Where'd he go?
So we could talk real slow and wait for him. Is that something you want to know before we decide on this amendment?
It would seem to make sense. I don't know if we could have discussion without.
All right.
And then throw it to him.
Parliamentary wise, you can still make the motion to move the, approve the order and then wait for him to come back for the amendments. Because I have a couple questions.
And no one's made a motion to approve.
So I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion made to approve, made and seconded by Councilman Wood. Any discussion?
So while we're waiting to talk about the amendments, so is the purpose of getting rid of the garage just to leave open space, or repurposing? Sorry, it's idea about this.
Right, my purpose was it doesn't serve the town any purpose anymore, the highway barn. I think it's an eyesore on Spring Street. There's a lot of good businesses that have gone in down there. I think that the area, to me, it would make sense to put some parking in there and maybe, a couple of trees and a sitting bench, just something simple, just so it's space for businesses that have customers could go in there and park. We can fight over whether it's paid parking or not another day, but I would say no to that. But I think it would look better if it were a place, because when people pull in there, they park against the building on the right, and that's technically really not parking. If they came in and parked to the left, there'd be plenty of parking. So that's the idea that I have, but we haven't really, discussed what to do with that space. The second thing is I always thought would be if BTV could move and build a building right there on the corner, right where the highway barn was, to move their facility up front, and that would free up the back area in the hopes of someday that the Town River Landing would be developed and make some of that parking as a destination area for people to go to the Town River Landing and, park there, maybe put a little gazebo and some benches down the end there and launch their canoe or go for a walk or whatever. That's down the road. But in the immediate thing, it would be nice to see some parking, a couple of trees and benches, something for people to sit on. But the issue I think the town manager first had was looking to see if there was any contamination problems with that. I don't know if that report finally came out or not.
So we only did first and second on before the amendments. So do you want to make the motion for the amendments? Sorry, I'm doing your job.
Hey, speak away.
Well, there was coming from...
It doesn't matter who makes it, I guess. I'd make a motion that we amend the order as written to set a deadline for the reception, for the receipt of bids by April 1st, 2019.
But I guess we wanted to clarify with
Actually,
him whether it
let me withdraw that.
Can it be torn down as
Mr.
it
Dutton,
cleared the environmental issue?
Before we put a deadline on this, I think it would make sense to ask you if that's doable or if more time would be better.
We know that we've gone out to check prices on what it would cost to tear it down. We also know we have to do an RFP. So generally we have, we have to do it at the very least a 2-week turnaround, and we usually do 30 days where we can. And so I would say we have one soil testing to come back to figure out if there's hazardous material in the soil, that's going to cause a more significant issue. But assuming there's no contaminants in the soil or it's nothing that can't be handled in a tear down, then the only remediation we have to do is the asbestos, which I think is found in the walls and the windows, which is more manageable. So we also have to do an appropriation, though. Technically, you should have an appropriation before you vote to actually demolish, or vote to go out to bid, rather. So, but if that's a high priority for the council, I certainly don't have an objection to setting a date. I might ask that it be Memorial Day, just sort of thinking ahead to the timeline, with the understanding that I may come back and say, no, there's soil contaminants that are going to, cause a much longer delay, or at least a complexity which we have to deal with.
Ms. Loesch?
Question through you to the town manager. Did you say the test was already done? And we're waiting for the results?
Soil tests have been done, I believe, yeah.
And we're just waiting for the results?
We have the results of the actual building hazards.
Okay, so today's the 8th. And you're saying by May 28th, 27th would be the time that you would want, so you can have 30 days to prior, so you really wouldn't start until the end of April.
We would we have to go through an appropriation process.
Okay, and that's what you're saying. So from January 8th through April 28th, those 3 months is what the appropriation process would take for us to get started.
The appropriation process, and then the actual RFP bid process.
Right. So, and that RFP bid process would start April through the Memorial Day, is what you're asking? Like May 1st to the end of the month? To get things back by the end?
I see what you mean. Yes.
Okay. So we have 3 months to get the appropriation done, which I think is more than enough time.
So the April 1st date works then?
No.
No.
He's asking for June 1st.
I mean, if I could work with May 1st, but that could be a potentially tight timeline.
I like tight timelines, so I'm down for May 1st.
Mr. Gallagher's got some input.
I think that, there's 3 RFPs here, or 3 quotes we're looking for. Number one is, if the soil is found to be contaminated, as minimal as it might be, there's a cost to have that removed. Okay, and then if the asbestos in the building, there's going to be a cost to have that removed. So we would need quotes or the cost to remedy those 2 situations. And then there's the RFP for the tear down. So if I'm comfortable with the date that's been set, if you're comfortable that those 2 things, if need be remediated, can be done by that time as well. Then the 4th piece would be, to develop it once it's torn down,
Right. And that's all fine. I would say I want to make sure the council hears and understands that if we have soil contamination, that's going to be a completely different ball of wax, and we'll have to retrench and deal with that.
So I make an amendment, since this was started July 10th of 2018, that we do not wait until July 10th of 2019 before anything happens. So if we can update your amendment for the April 1st to May 1st is my motion.
I'll second that.
May 1st?
Barring any major problems that the town manager sees.
Yeah, if you want to add that language.
If you want to add some language, you should be a little bit more succinct.
Yeah.
Okay, so May 1st, motion made and seconded to change the date, demolition of the bids quotes, the demolition of the date by April, strike April 1st, make it May 1st. That's what we're...
And with the additional language of barring any major environmental hazards.
Remediation, yeah.
Got that, Ann?
Yep.
A second.
Made and seconded. Those in favor of that motion?
Discussion.
Oh, sorry,
Are
discussion.
you adding in the change of the word from seek to receive?
Yes, that's already implied, yes.
That is inclusive of the motion, yes.
Implied, but it wasn't in the actual motion. Okay, thank you.
Was it in his
It's-
motion?
Oh, it was in his
It was
motion.
written, it's in the,
We're making a motion to add May
Confusing
1st contingent upon clean environmental.
so we're good, as far as what the motion's going to be. Everybody?
Yes.
Excellent. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, back to the original.
I would just like to say to Mr. Wood's point, that highway barn was cited as one of the 5 areas for redevelopment under the revitalization plan. And the consultant's recommendation, which we endorsed, was to create mixed development on that site. It was actually, I think, to relocate the BTV elsewhere, put mixed development, commercial on the street, some residents behind, and then access to the Town River Landing. So it would kind of leverage the amenity of that, the canoe launch and nature that provides to commercial and residential. So I think that, I would hope that would inform discussions of reuse down the road.
Go ahead.
And I did look, as you had pointed out to me, to look in that report, which I think is a 2014 report. And it was a nice drawing, and it looked really nice, the plans that are proposed in that study. However, I think that we can still accomplish most of those things without the housing. And I think that many other developments have popped up in the community where that wouldn't really be needed there. So that's a discussion we can have later on. Yeah.
Well, what we have heard from private developers on Broad Street is that housing sells these days and retail is kind of floundering. So I guess we could, when time comes, we could see what the market will bear.
So this is to tear it down, right? This is to make it
Start the
ugly.
discussion about an amendment about an order to get a bid.
Yes.
You asked, Mr. Blair.
Good discussion that will continue
That's
somewhere.
full time, thank you. Okay.
So those in favor of FY 19-013 as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Excellent.
We're not,
What?
we have to make a full motion and it's a roll call vote.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Loesch.
Yes.
Mr. George.
Yes.
Mr. Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Haley.
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Mr. Columbotus.
Yes.
7 in favor, none against.
It's not for the amendments, for the whole order.
Thank you.
Motion to approve order F1935.
Second.
Sorry. Motion made and seconded for FY 19-035. Discussion. And those in favor?
Aye.
Those against?
Roll call.
Oh, sorry, roll call. Trying to motor through this.
Mr. Columbotus.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes.
Mr. Haley.
Yes.
Mr. Chase.
Yes.
Mr. George.
Yes.
Mrs. Loesch.
Yes.
7 in favor, none against.
Motion to approve FY 1937 order.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
The budget and finance committee met tonight, and we voted in favor of the $630,000 revenue.
Okay, those in favor? Oh, sorry, roll call. Sorry, guys and ladies.
Mrs. Loesch.
Yes.
Mr. George.
Yes.
Mr. Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Haley.
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Mr. Columbotus.
Yes.
7 in favor, none against.
Thank you very much. Resolution FY 19-003. Let me get to it.
E. Oh, E.
Committee recommend.
That's not, no.
No?
Pete, do you want to speak to?
Pete, I'm sorry. This resolution came through the master plan committee as I guess the motivation was to be able to control air rights for any potential future use. I know Transit X was that proposal, that informal proposal that came to the town, that would, to implement such a project would require the town to delegate air rights. And so there's currently nothing in our ordinances that dictates who controls air rights and how we might allocate them. So so the master plan committee put this resolution together. It really probably should have, I spoke with the town manager before the meeting, and we agreed that it should probably just be an ordinance from the start. A resolution is really to express an opinion, and so if it were to be a resolution, it would really just say the town council believes control of air rights is important to development. It doesn't really do that. So our committee suggests that this be tabled indefinitely, and that we town manager put together an ordinance with the planning director that would really get to the meat of this issue, an ordinance which would stipulate how air rights are delegated and controlled. So we recommend tabling this resolution.
Is that a motion? I'll second that for discussion.
Okay, motion made to table the resolution, and seconded, and it's open for discussion. Mr. Gallagher.
I just have a question, and Peter, you might be able to answer this. Would an ordinance like this cover, what are those things people use now? Drones. There you go. I mean, if someone wanted to film overhead, a drone, I mean, is that?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if.
I mean, because that's going to be a big thing down the road. People are going to be, they're already flying drones everywhere.
The FAA controls some of that, right?
There's been some litigation on that where there was, I can't think of the name of the town, it may have been Newton. There was a town that did try to pass an ordinance limiting the use of drones, and it was preempted by federal law because it's allowed under federal law. So that was some recent litigation, maybe over the last couple of years.
I would just add that if we're going to put together an ordinance for something like this, we might want to, if we can, put language in there as we're researching something about the use of drones in the town. That's all. Or other flying devices.
Just be aware of it, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Wood.
So I have an alternative to tabling it. It says here it was introduced by the town manager, which by fact that we're a council with sponsorship, that means that the president's actually sponsoring this resolution. So you could just simply withdraw it from the agenda and then have it reworked elsewhere.
It's fine.
Learning all kinds of things today. That's excellent.
So you have options, is what he's telling you.
Yeah, so I should exercise my presidential rights and remove this item from the agenda. Do I have to wave my hand or?
That's good. It's noted in the minutes.
Excuse me. So can we move to old business now? I think we can, right? FY19-004, parking meters. My eyes are getting worse and worse as this day goes on.
Well, this is your.
So it is mine.
Go ahead.
So where are we with it?
We can vote on this. This is to go to advertising, yeah.
It has to go to
I'll
advertising,
make a
yeah.
motion to send this to advertising.
I'll second that.
Motion made, second to go to advertising. Discussion on that? None. Those in favor of going to advertising?
Aye.
Aye. Those against? New business, FY19-038.
Mr. President, both of these, 038, 039, are both relative to the employing of police cadets and the creation of a police cadet program. And these are obviously filed at the request of the police chief, and I would suggest and recommend that they be referred to Public Safety Committee.
All right,
motion to move to Public Safety Committee.
Second.
Made and seconded, discussion. None of those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Order FY 19-039, home rule petition.
Move to have it go to the Public Safety Committee.
Second.
Made and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Citizens' comments.
Good evening. Carlton Hunnity, Austin Street Master Plan Committee Chair. Thank you for not tabling that resolution. I think it's important that we deal with the issue of air rights in terms of future transportation issues. So I think I look forward to work on that. But I have notified Matt Garrettson, a lawyer who actually drafted the language, to reach out to the town council and the community development director to help them with his rationale and thinking behind that, so that we're going to the source of that document in terms of developing that further. And I also just wanted to thank Mr. Columbotus for reminding the council that the Town River Landing area was a priority mixed-use development in the 2014 master plan, and I look forward to the town taking the initiative to start to develop that in a very economical, tax-friendly way. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Seeing none. Council comments. Ms. Loesch, you can start.
Just want to thank the school committee and the finance committee for joining us tonight. And that's it.
Mr. George.
I'm good.
Okay.
Just like to, if I may, urge citizens who have not yet submitted to the town clerk's office the annual town census. They should do so. I am among those who have not yet done so. And it's an important task undertaken annually, and I look forward to delivering my census to the town clerk.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yeah, I want to thank the school committee and the finance committee for coming in tonight. I think it's a good start on the budget cycle. It could be a tough one, but I'm sure we'll get through it. But I also want to say I did not know that his last day with you, Mr. Dutton, was going to be last Friday, but I want to thank Mike Spagone for his time that he served this community as a volunteer and as an employee, and perhaps we'll see him back here someday, and I wish him well of the town of Avon.
Mr. Wood.
Thank you. As I drove here tonight, and it was dark, I saw that the Common was once again dark. So I want to thank my fellow Lions for putting up and taking down the display. Again, adding some holiday cheer, hopefully, for the town of Bridgewater. I want to thank all the school and finance folks for coming in. I think that we'll have some good discussions going forward. I've added another item to my agenda, so the robotics season is open. Everybody here, and I'll repeat this probably a couple times, is invited because BR is the host of one of the district events, and anybody that comes by is always amazed. There's never a shortfall of entertainment and amazement, and it's the fastest 2.5-minute competition that you'll ever see. So that'll be up in March, I believe. Thanks.
Mr. Columbotus.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Okay, I guess that leaves me. It was great to have the school committee folks in here. And I heard a few times people say that they've experienced a new level of relationship with the town and some of the discussions and the new kind of open book type of thing. And that's really good to see growing up in this town and seeing how the historical relationship's been. I hope it continues to improve and everybody's eyes are widened and everybody's aware of some transparency is a real thing. And that's it for me. So with that being said, there's still business to attend to, I believe. So executive session. We are going to have executive session. So I will entertain a motion to move into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with...
So moved with the amendment to adjourn from that meeting after executive session.
Yes. Okay. Roll call vote.
Second.
No one.
Mr. Columbotus.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes.
Mr. Haley.
Yes.
Mr. Chase.
Yes.
Mr. George.
Yes.
Mrs. Loesch.
Yes.
7 in favor, none against.